another day. It's another The Lord of the Rings of Power actress admitting just how terrible their show is and what their goals are and how terrible their goals are for the show. This time we have Cynthia Addai Robinson admitting that the goal of the series is basically to warp people's vision of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. So she recently appeared at the Monte Carlo Television Festival in the middle of June, and Variety reports that she said this: season 1 is really about an introduction. You're setting the stage for aspects of the story that are maybe a little bit more familiar to audiences because we do know a little bit more of these next few things that happen that will be part of season 2. But there are a lot of people who have never read the books. They've never seen the movies. So that season 1 setup really is, in my mind, it's really for those people who are very new to Tolkien. So there you have it right there. They are trying to rewrite Tolkien through the Rings of Power. They have basically eschewed the Silmarillion, they've eschewed the appendices, and they want you to think that Rings of Power Season 1 is what really happened in the Second Age, when in fact, if you actually read the Silmarillion, you read the appendices, you realize that this didn't happen. If you watch the opening sequence of Peter Jackson's films, you realize the way that they depict the Rings of Power actually being made is not how they show it in the Rings of Power show. So they are trying to rewrite Tolkien's work for this quote-unquote modern audience. They want these themes that they've created, that they've done, they want their inversion, their deconstruction, to be what people think of when they think of J.R. Tolkien and The Lord of the Rings. And she's saying it right there. She's saying it right there. There are a lot of people who have never read the books. They've never seen the movies. So that season 1 setup really is, in my mind, it's really for those people who are very new to Tolkien. They want people who don't know Tolkien to think that this is actually Tolkien rather than his actual books that he wrote and what his original vision for The Lord of the Rings was, for the Silmarillion, for the Second Age, for the Third Age, etc., etc. I mean, he has this all detailed down. His son, Christopher Tolkien, edited the Silmarillion and published it posthumously based on his father's notes that he created. I mean, it's all there for you to read and to see, and you can see how different it is from the Rings of Power. So then she's going on trying to say like, oh, so season 2, you're going to see a lot of storylines start to come through, trying to imply that they're actually going to go back to the books, which is what they said they were doing in season 1. Clearly, they didn't do that because they were also telling us that they were writing the novel that Tolkien never wrote, when in fact he did write it, and then it was published posthumously by his son, Christopher Tolkien, in the Silmarillion, and then he also expanded on that in Unfinished Tales. So they were already written, but these comments are common. Like Addai Robinson's comments from the cast are common. We had Sophia Novent earlier before the show was even out. She was telling PA Media last July, a year ago, she was saying that this was her goal for the show. We are redressing the balance within the film and television industry, and of course this franchise, and I hope lots of franchises moving forward. What are you even talking about? She's clearly saying she's specifically trying to change this book, Tolkien's works, to redress some balance. What is she even talking about? Like, this is insane. She's clear. I mean, I can tell you what she's talking about. She's talking about race, because that's all she talks about in lots of her interviews, and that's exactly what she's talking about here. It's just sick. I mean, these people are so hyper-focused on this stuff that they don't care what they're doing. They want to destroy this stuff because it doesn't fit in with what their vision of the world wants to be. So anything that is counter to their vision, they have to warp, change, and destroy it in order for it to try and fit into their vision of the world. She went on to say these are the best people for the roles, but what they've done is open up the doors for people of all backgrounds to come forward and have the opportunity to rise. She then says to be part of creating accessibility for generations to come, for new generations, this is their version of Tolkien, right there. Their version of Tolkien. Clearly a different version than what actually Tolkien wrote, than what he did. It's ridiculous. But they're telling you that they're creating a new version of Tolkien that is not Tolkien. She says, this is what my daughter will see of Tolkien's works. So she doesn't want her daughter to even read Tolkien. She seemingly doesn't want her to watch the Peter Jackson films. She wants her to watch this version of Tolkien. This is the new definitive version of Tolkien for her daughter and this younger generation of people that might not have read Tolkien or watched Jackson's films yet. because this is what they want people to come away with. This is what Tolkien really was about. Which is not what he's about. Like, all the themes in the show are completely contrary to Tolkien. It's just wrong. And his story. Anyways, she goes on and says, it's their time, and it's so important, and I hope many people will see this fantasy and be able to relate to it. This is a reflection of the world we live in. That's something Tolkien would reject. He was against allegory. There are many, and we are different, and we will embrace and discover and peel back and learn and educate and be educated. And we can only do that when we embrace and love our differences. So I think Tolkien would reject that as well. And there's plenty of evidence of that in the actual books. Boromir being one of the biggest, given the fact that, but fortunately he came back, he repented and came back to that. But anyways, this is what these people talk about. They are literally telling you that they are creating a new version of Tolkien, and that's what they want to do. They want it to be the definitive version. They're trying to indoctrinate people with this show in order to make them think this is the actual what Tolkien thought of the Second Age. When in fact, if you read the Silmarillion, it's very clear that is not what he thought.